Okay, so first, I'd like to thank Mary for inviting me out to speak to you guys this evening. My name's Scott Kuboff. I'm an Ohio bicycle accident attorney with the law firm of Peterson and Eibold. Uh-oh, we went a little too far already. Let me correct myself. With Eibold and O'Brien. We changed our name in October. I'm still getting used to it. I've been practicing law for 10 years. In that entire time, I have been supporting Northeast Ohio, predominantly cycling teams. That's me back in my fast days. Right now I'm mainly focused on raising two young boys with my wife Terry in University Heights. The older one, he's 3.5, and he absolutely loves just getting out on his little scoop bike. So what we're going to talk about today primarily is going to be traffic laws and ordinances. And really the purpose of it is to just keep you abreast of what the law is so that when you're out there, you can stay safe and you can stay legal. And we're going to wrap it up with a brief discussion on what to do if you're in a bicycle accident and how to protect yourself before you're in a bicycle accident. Those are things that I'm really passionate about because that's what I do on a day-to-day basis in my personal injury practice. And then I can take some questions if you have any. So first, we're going to talk about traffic laws and ordinances. Go real quick through the first couple slides. What is a vehicle? Under the revised code, anything on wheels and runners. The thing to take away from this, a bicycle is a vehicle. However, since there's laws that specifically apply to a bicycle, that's defined as any device that's propelled solely by human power upon which someone rides and has two wheels in excess of 14 inches in diameter. So, pretty easy question for us to answer. Are bicycles permitted on the roadway? Well, absolutely, of course they are. The Better Bicycling Bill absolutely ensured this. While the revised code allows municipalities like Cleveland Heights, University Heights, and Shaker Heights to regulate the operation of bicycles in the communities, it prohibits them from banning them on public roadways. One notable exception, bicycles are prohibited on freeways. So if there's multi-lanes that are divided, the intersections are underpasses and overpasses, and you need to get on them using an entrance ramp, chances are you're on a freeway and you shouldn't be there on a bicycle. So in part of the presentation, how I have it set up is a lot of questions that are asked of me in my practice. So one is, can cities require riding on a path or sidewalk? No. Municipalities cannot require you to ride your bike on a sidewalk or path, even if one is designated right next to a roadway. Keep in mind that while they can regulate bicycles within the community, they cannot ban or prohibit the use of riding your bike on the road. In addition, 4511.711 says that no local authority may require bicycles be operated on sidewalks. So how do the heights stack up? Well, Cleveland Heights passes. Shaker Heights, I would say, would otherwise pass except for their age requirement. The revised code doesn't have an age requirement of who's too young to operate on the roadway. I think really that's just good parenting and common sense as to whether or not your child should be on a roadway. University Heights fails because the chief of police could designate roadways that are too dangerous for a bicycle to be traveled on. It could post a sign saying that bicycles are not allowed to be on this road, and that is the current state of the law. So despite that, Meadowbrook has not made the list of dangerous roads to travel on. That's a pothole joke for the mayor, but anyhow. So I added this one because a guy in a Super Duty once told me that I was a pedestrian. Unfortunately for him, we are not. Remember, bicycles are vehicles, and another thing is pedestrians are defined as any natural person afoot. So where can bicycles be operated on the roadway? Anybody? Oh.
Wherever your discretion tells you.
No, not wherever your discretion tells you. Yes, so as practicable. So while bikes could use the full lane, they must be ridden as far to the right as practicable. And I think that reasonable minds could disagree on this part. My belief personally is that although cyclists are entitled to use the full lane, that you do have to ride as far to the right as you can, as long as it is safe and reasonable to do so. One thing is practicable is not defined anywhere in the revised code, okay? So if you're looking for a definition of it, you're not going to find it. That code section does go on to say you don't have to ride on the edge of the road when it's unreasonable and unsafe to do so.
Which is always. Right.
Yeah. So it goes on further. So you don't have to ride to avoid fixed or moving objects, parked or moving cars, surface hazards, or when it's otherwise unsafe or impracticable to do so, including if the lane is too narrow for a bicycle and another vehicle to pass. So that brings up an interesting point. So what happens if you're riding, say, in the middle of the lane because in your mind that is a safe and reasonable place to be? And just as a quick caveat, as a personal injury attorney, my general rule of thumb is whatever gets you home to your family at night, just do what's safe and do what's going to get you seen and get you home safely. But if a police officer sees you and says, well, you're not riding to the right as far as you possibly can, they're going to stop you, they're going to cite you, and you're going to have to go to court. I don't think having a conversation with a police officer on the side of the road is the proper forum to address any concerns or disagreements. I believe that's what courts are for. But what I have here is that I really think that's going to be an issue that the cyclist would have to present the trier of fact. And usually that's just going to be a judge or a magistrate in traffic court. And you would have to, present why, from your perspective, your riding position on the road was safe and why you were not riding over on the edge.
BOP?
Oh, burden of proof. Burden of proof. And I think any prosecutor is going to have the officer testify as it relates to the positioning, would probably ask some questions that would elicit a negative answer as, was there any objects in the roadway? No. Was there any vehicles in the roadway? No. Did you observe any surface hazards? No. In order to effectively put that burden onto the cyclist to show why they were riding anywhere other than the far side. So the heights report card, everybody passes. So can a city force me to ride single file? I'm seeing some yeses. You should be shaking your head no. So again, the revised code allows municipalities to regulate cycling within the community, provided that it's not fundamentally inconsistent with any other provision of the revised code. 4511 55B allows bicyclists to ride not more than 2 abreast. Is riding single file fundamentally inconsistent with riding 2 abreast? In my opinion, it is. Because if you're riding 2 abreast and you're cited for that, that is something that is not against the law under the revised code. So in my mind, it would be fundamentally inconsistent. So why do we see single file signs still up? Well, most of the reason is the Better Bicycling Bill was introduced, let's see, September 21st, 2006. Most of the ordinance out there, they predate 2006. So looking in around Moreland Hills, that was 1972. Still requires single file. Gates Mills, 2004, still requires single files. Hunting Valley is just still in the Stone Age as it relates to their cycling laws, and we'll get to that in a second. But the good news is the heights, they're compliant and up to speed, allowing for cyclists to ride 2 abreast. So just a little bit more on old ordinances. So back, I think in the 50s and 60s, a lot of municipalities had these safe riding regulations for bicycles and told cyclists that we are to operate our bicycles in such a way as to not cause any undue harm to motorists out there, which is just crazy to think that a bicyclist could actually harm a motorist, but that's why they're there. So Hunting Valley basically says that anytime there's a path or a sidewalk next to a roadway, that a bicyclist should use that instead of the road. Not only just should use it, but has to use it. University Heights, I'll pick on them again. I am a resident of University Heights, but bicyclists have to walk their bikes through intersections. And it's not just University Heights. There's other communities that have these laws still on the books that are from the 50s and 60s that say some crazy stuff. So, this gets us back to another thing. Do I really have to register my bike? Anybody? Okay. You do, actually. The revised code permits cities to require registrations and licensing of the bicycle, including paying a fee. So here's where my grading perhaps gets a little wonky because people may disagree with this. I think they all fail. All of the municipalities have registration, which is not unlawful by any stretch, but then it goes further, says that if you don't register your bicycle, you're prohibited from using a road, riding on a road or a public place. That's in Cleveland Heights. So presumably you would be prohibited from even riding in Forest Hills Park if you wanted to. In Shaker Heights, you're prohibited from riding anywhere within the city. So presumably even your own front yard, you wouldn't be able to do so unless it's registered. And then University Heights on a road or a public path. And of course, we just have the new beautiful community park that has a nice little track around it. So you would be prohibited from even riding your bike around the track if it's not registered. So I think that's where I come in with the failing grades on them. So
would those be able to be applied to non-residents? So somebody from outside of the city riding through?
Yeah. So how those are if you live in a city that has these laws and you're registered in your city, you're fine. So that's basically how it is. And I would have to go back to look at the specific ordinances themselves, but that, from my recollection of how they're written is effectively if you're registered in University Heights and you go to Cleveland Heights or Shaker Heights, you don't have to register when you get into the city. So everybody, what is the safe passing distance in Ohio? Yeah, great. We just passed the 1-year anniversary of that becoming law, or I should say being effective. So HB House Bill 154 became effective March 21st of 2017. Requires operators of vehicles when passing a bicycle for 3 feet or greater. Now, mind you, it says operators of a vehicle, so
That's another bicycle.
Arguably, that's another bicycle. So make sure you give 3 feet to your fellow cyclists. So bicycles, we could yield at stop signs, right? No. We have to follow the law. That includes stopping at stop signs. That includes speeding. So if you bomb down Fairmont Hill to Chagrin River and you're going 40 miles an hour and you get a speeding ticket, that can actually happen. So what about you can ride through a red light after you stop?
Depends.
Depends.
Depends on whether that light is responsive.
Yeah, we'll just go to the next slide. Exactly. So HB 154, the same one that gave us 3 feet, also provided a section that says how it applies to cyclists. If you're at a spot that has like a weight sensor and it fails to detect you're there, you have to stop, yield the right of way, and proceed with due care. So only in that circumstance could you go through a red light. Okay. So what to do if you're involved in a bicycle accident? First, call 911 if you're able to, and wait for the police to respond. The police are going to be there. They're going to take names, addresses, insurance information. They may gather statements. I'm not really too worried about how the police come down in terms of liability and who's at fault for what. That's my job to sort out in a court of law. But also as first responders, they're going to be able to help treat injuries before EMS arrives. The next thing, treat your injuries, even if it's a minor injury. Go to the emergency department or urgent care, or at the very least call your primary care physician to set up an appointment. If it's a soft tissue injury, oftentimes it takes several days for those really to start aggravating and causing issues. But getting into a doctor, documenting the fact that you've been into an accident. Lawyers like me, we use medical records every day to establish the fact that an injury occurred and what was the extent of it. And the one thing you don't want to give an insurance company any inch of room to say, well, hey, there was a 2-week delay or a 3-week delay in treatment. What was going on here? What other injuries, what other accidents were they involved in that wasn't caused by my insured? So get in early, get it documented, make sure that you're seeking the care you need. And then gather and preserve evidence. I'm going to jump a little around on this. First, if you have a phone, pull it out, take pictures of the accident scene. If you have the ability to record a video, record some statements of any witnesses as to what they saw. Your kit and your bike or your clothes, try to preserve those in the condition that they are. Don't wash them, don't repair them as it relates to your bike. Kind of leave it in a mangled mess until you can get a lawyer to document it properly. Those are pieces of evidence that we would use in court. But going back to GoPro and Garmin, so GoPro is fantastic, and I've truth be told was somewhat of a snot of a road racer, and always would laugh when I'd see people that have like a GoPro on their helmet or something like that. As a lawyer, I think it is the best thing that people invest in. I can't tell you how many times we've had people come into the office that have been involved in one of these types of accidents and then be able to provide the video which disputes something that's in a police report. So having a GoPro or other type of video is really, in terms of a kind of an insurance policy, a very good thing to have. And then the Garmin data, I save everything. I have it on my watch, but I save every run, every ride that I do, upload it to Strava. I would take that stuff and I would use it for what we would call non-economic damages, so pain, suffering, loss of enjoyment of life. If you told me that you rode 100 miles a week or 10 hours a week and then you were involved in a bad accident and you were unable to ride for a period of time, I would be able to verify that and provide that information to an insurance adjuster to say, here's the volume of riding before the accident, here's the day of the accident, here's how long they were out and how long it took them to recover back to pre-accident status. So that's very important. And then call an experienced attorney and open up a claim. So how to protect yourself before you get into a bicycle accident, and really this is me shilling for the insurance agency. Life insurance, disability insurance, I think those are fairly self-explanatory. But the big one is going to be uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage, UM/UIM coverage. Most people don't know that when they buy an auto policy, you know, yes, you are buying protection and coverage in the event you cause damage using your motor vehicle, but you also buy or could buy coverage for damage caused to you by a motor vehicle, regardless if you're in yours or not. So I use uninsured and underinsured policies all the time, especially in a, you know, maybe a hit and run scenario where there is no driver that stays on scene. But you know, the cyclist has an auto policy at home. They have an uninsured provision, and you can make a claim on your own auto policy. So uninsured, that comes into play if the motorist doesn't have any insurance, which is unfortunately all too common. And then underinsured is if they do not have enough insurance. So state law says 25/50 is minimum, meaning $25,000 a person, $50,000 per occurrence. So say all of us were doing a group ride and someone came and struck us and multiple people were injured and they had state minimum coverage, that would mean that there would be $50,000 to spread among all of us. If you have underinsured policy, you'd then be able to make a claim on your own. And then lastly, if you own a home, make sure you get an umbrella policy. I think it costs about, you know, a replacement tube per month. It's really dirt cheap. You can get up to, really, I mean, I think minimum is $1 million in coverage. And make sure that that applies to your uninsured, underinsured coverage, and you'll be adequately protected. So with that, does anybody have any questions at all?